This cute little succulent is Xerosicyos perrieri. It's a little bit of a challenging name to actually say. Some of that Latin is a little bit difficult, but for the most part, this is a beautiful little succulent that could grow in high light to bright light conditions. And actually the first time I had this plant, I unfortunately lost it. I got a little stem cutting and I completely forgot about watering it, which is understandable because these plants don't need a tremendous amount of water, even if you're giving them kind of the full light, bright light conditions. But I'm going to be a little bit more mindful with this one this time. So I am growing it just about a foot away from my southwest facing window. And I do have to be a little bit cautious because I am growing this in a container that doesn't have a hole. So this is one really cute little cacti pot here that I have. But you'll also notice that I have a much more well-draining mix. So this is like really heavy and like lava stones and perlite, and has very little kind of like regular potting medium. And so I just want that water to kind of filter through, and I have to just be very mindful because if I were you, I'd probably grow this and you weren't maybe, if you feel like you're not so mindful when it comes to watering, then I would grow this with a little bit of a hole in the pot. But I started growing it in this pot because I really love it, and also I was like short on pots, so this is the one that I actually got. But otherwise than that, you could water it until it's super dry. Like this plant, because of the succulent nature of its leaves, and if you look at it like very close here, you'll see how chunky they are. This does really well with not being watered all that often. And as far as humidity goes, it absolutely needs like no humidity. You could have very low to moderate humidity in your home, and this plant will be fine. As a matter of fact, I think if you give it too much water and too much humidity or the moisture in the air, it's probably going to rot. So I would make sure that you're giving it kind of that little bit more brighter light conditions and not having it in such high humidity situations. This plant, as you can see, it's kind of like lopping over to the side. That's not a bad thing. This is actually a liana, or a type of vining plant. In fact, this one's a little bit hard to get your hands on, but there is a Xerosicyos that is known as a silver dollar plant that is a little bit more common. And you actually find those as stem cuttings as well, but they're actually caudiciforms. They have a caudex, which is the swollen base of the stem. But if you get a stem cutting, they actually don't develop a caudex, and they vine from that caudex the same way that the Xerosicyos silver dollar plant does. This one actually vines as well, so that's why you see it a little bit lopsided. I will probably eventually need to kind of stake this on a bamboo pole because if it gets too lopsided, it might actually crack under its weight. So you just want to be a little bit more mindful of that as well. As far as fertilizing goes, these plants are like super, super easy. You could actually fertilize them more like with cacti fertilizer. So I would say a 2-4-7, which is kind of really low, and do it once a year, just annually. So it's not that big of a deal. So if you're looking for a very low maintenance plant, something that's a little bit different, and you have very good light conditions, meaning a south or a western facing window, if you happen to be in the northern hemisphere, then this is a really cool plant for you. And actually you could probably grow other types of succulents and cacti as well. But if you have a north facing window, or maybe even eastern facing window, or you don't have any grow lights in your home or anything like that, then a plant like this is actually going to be much more of a challenge for you. As I mentioned, I had lost this stem cutting of this plant really early on, and I ended up scoring another cutting of this. So I haven't had it growing an exceptionally long time, but I have had no problems with pests either. So just have probably more to report as I continue growing with it. But since this is only about a year old, or less than a year old, I don't have much else to report. But I absolutely adore this plant.